I asked him if he wanted to get a donut, and he was like, "Oh, I don't want a donut. I'm not very hungry." And then Jim Gaffigan goes to respond saying, "Well, what does that have to do with it?" Hey, real learners. Hopefully this isn't too bumpy as we're walking along here, but I had to jump on. I had to share some things that I've been thinking about specifically today. I know the message of procrastination is something that is really drilled hard into the self-mastery realm. No, don't procrastinate. If you put something off, you'll never do it. And then you also hear on the other side of things when people say, oh, procrastination helps you perform better under pressure, right? And I will say that I have seen that in my own life, but I guess I'm kind of branching this into something else that I've been thinking about. Rewind back a little bit. When my wife and I first got married, we really liked a comedian. His name was Jim Gaffigan. So if some of you Jim Gaffigan fans out there, he was really big, like in the kind of like earlier 2000s. But he had a bit where he's talking about donuts, right? And he loves donuts. He likes to eat. He's a little overweight. That's kind of his persona that he portrays. But he's talking about donuts. And he's like, I'm with a friend, and I asked him if he wanted to get a donut. And he was like, oh, I don't want a donut. I'm not very hungry. And then Jim Gaffigan goes to respond saying, well, what does that have to do with it? And that phrase has actually stuck in my mind for a different thing. Specifically, like when I find that I don't want to do something, one thing that has helped me is kind of recite that phrase. I don't want to do this. Well, what does that have to do with it? Right? One mentor that I had earlier in my career, he always talked about momentum, and we've talked about that a little bit here. But he said getting started is always the hardest part of doing anything. So I'll give you an example today. I'm a little bit sunburned, as you can probably tell. I coach my son's soccer team. I forgot to put sunscreen on. Soccer game is pretty much we woke up earlier, like 6 a.m., and then we went to clean our church. Doing volunteer work, doing some service. And then we went and did soccer games pretty much from 8 till 2 o'clock. Then driving home, I spent some more time with my son while my wife and daughter went off, and my daughter had a play date that she was doing with some friends. So I hung out with my son, and then my wife came home. And I realized when she came home, like we spent some time together, and that's really important to me and to our family, that we always dedicate a lot of time on Saturdays to be together. But we were sitting there, and I had not worked out today, and I really, really didn't want to go. And that's not usually like me. For those of you that know me, I'm a very active person. I love fitness. I love to work out. That's kind of my de-stressor, my outlet, apart from spiritual things, studying scriptures and stuff like that. But as I was sitting there, my wife's like, are you going to go work out? And I'm like, I really, really don't want to. And then she's like, well, then don't. This is not to bash on my wife or anything. My wife is just a sweetheart. She always know. I think if you get, for those of you that are married or have a significant other in your life that helps kind of counterbalance some of your extremes, I'm one of those people that really go to the extreme of pushing myself and doing things I don't want to do. And I think my wife has picked up on that over 13 years of marriage. And so she's always like, slow down, don't you do too much. She's a great voice in my head that helps me to slow down when I need to. But she was like, yeah, don't go to the gym then if you don't want to. And I'm like, I appreciate that, honey, but that's just not my philosophy. That's just not who I am. I don't want to, but what does that have to do with it? We've talked a lot about having your why. That's what pushes you past that barrier where you don't want to do something. I mean, you're able to, say that, what does me not wanting to do it have to do with me actually doing it? So I went to the gym, and I feel a whole lot better. But as I was in the gym, I was thinking about that. Like, man, I almost didn't come today. And that has not happened to me in a long, long time. So I just wanted to share that with you guys. If you're saying to yourself, I really don't want to do something, and there's that dichotomy, right, of balancing. I think there's that dichotomy of being able to not run faster than you're able, right, doing things that, if you constantly go like, don't want to do this, don't want to do that. Yeah, you need to want to do it in a sense. Like your why needs to be bigger than your desire of not wanting to do the thing that you're trying to do. Desire has to be there, but your initial, like the want, it's not going to feel good. It's going to hurt, right? Growth always hurts. Sorry. I'm kind of in a forest area, as you guys can see. Just don't put those things off, guys. Hopefully one of you guys need to hear this. And one thing that I will say too, as I started this channel and I've started to share my thoughts, I mean, these are thoughts that I've had for years, for the last decade. And I always I'm a very vocal person. I like to vocalize what I'm thinking. And I think that's how we learn, right? Don't ever feel embarrassed to vocalize what you're learning. Why I say that is because I think learning out loud sometimes sounds weird. And that's why we get self-conscious. And I don't think that's necessarily anything we've done. I think it's something that society has instilled in us, is that, it's when we actually vocalize something as we're learning it, or as we're mastering it, right? Or as we're putting it in practice, we get self-conscious because we have this voice saying like, well, I'm still struggling with this, or I'm still trying to do this. I haven't mastered it yet. So who am I to preach about it? And that's just a carnal thought, a bad thought in our minds, and something that it keeps us from learning and from mastering things. I'll give you an example. My son, he's in this phase where he's 10. He's still learning how to vocalize. I'm not the greatest, the most articulate person either, but he's learning how to vocalize his thoughts, right? And he's dyslexic, so he struggles with that a little bit. And we're trying to help him find the words that he's trying to say. But for us to be able to create an environment where he even feels comfortable to open up and comfortable to make mistakes, that is something that we have really tried to do, as far as it's okay to vocalize what your emotions are and what you're learning, right? And this sounds really, and I don't want to get too political or anything like that, because I don't consider myself a very progressive person in the sense of how it's portrayed in politics. But there is a place for vulnerability. There's a place for, actually, I saw a clip with George Peterson in it, for these are the George Peterson fans. Vulnerability is strength, right? Being vulnerable, I guess what I'm vocalizing right now, like I didn't want to go to the gym today. And that actually kind of is embarrassing for me to say. It sounds weak in my mind when I say it out loud. Like, why would you not go to the gym, right? Why would you not work your hardest? Why would you not do that? Why would that thought even come to your mind? So vocalize those thoughts, guys. I think it's empowering. And that's, again, how we learn, right? If we're not able to say things out loud, I don't think you'll ever truly learn something. And so, again, this is a safe place. I always invite all you guys in the comments to share things that you're learning, maybe things that you're struggling with. Maybe you agree or disagree with what I'm saying here. But again, that's what I want to share. You don't want to do it. What does that have to do with it? What is your why behind it? And follow that voice and push yourself. Again, like my mentor said, it's usually the hardest part getting started. Once you get started, you're grateful that you did do it. Anyways, that's the thought I had for today. Hopefully that strengthened one of you. Please, again, in the comments, like the video if you haven't already, subscribe if you haven't already. And again, share in the comments things that you're learning, maybe things that you're struggling with. I would appreciate it. Thanks, guys. We'll talk to you guys soon. I'm going to finish my walk here.